by other sectors growing faster than they are growing. Today, agriculture is growing at a woeful rate of 1.5%. Industry is growing 4%, 3%. It's services which is now growing at 10%, and that pulls up the average. So you say, I have a 7% growth rate. Well, when you look at the structural side, you know it's an unhealthy growth. So that has to change. Now, the problem also is that if you step up the rate of growth, then what we will find is that you need a lot of new ways of doing it. Resources should be more efficiently used and so on. And that is where the innovation comes in. What is an innovation? It is, in very simple terms, an invention which is marketable. That is called an innovation. If I produce a steam engine and it is not converted into a locomotive, it remains just a steam engine. But when it gets converted to a locomotive, then it transports goods and the market gets smaller and people are able to do more business. So therefore, you have to have a budget. If you want to be a really big power, you have to have 2.5% of your GDP devoted to research and development. That means giving more money to IIMs and IITs and places like that. I'm sure you will agree with me that is overdue. I find the opposite is happening. There's cutbacks to our educational system which needs to be stopped. Presently, we are only spending 0.8% of our GDP for research and development. And this research and development is more in terms of improving the quality of what is already available. Take our software industries for which Bangalore is known. Even today we have not produced a domain name, a brand name. We don't have a Microsoft. We are great ones at producing improvements in the software. And that's what is called as blue-collar labor. We need people who will innovate and find new ways of doing it. And I'm saying innovation is the real basis for the fast growth of many countries and transformation to developed countries. How did Britain transform into a major economic power in the 19th century and the early 20th century? It's not doing so well now, but at that time, they discovered the locomotive, the Bessemer steel blast furnace, and that changed it all. Then the Americans came in, and they picked up large-scale production and electricity, telephone, wireless, all these things, and the Americans transformed these inventions into innovations and innovations into market applications. When World War II came, thanks to the defense production, they discovered many more things. Modern refrigerator came out of it. Fax machines were invented. The jet engines for transport, they became the innovations which pushed it. And finally, in 1990s or late 80s, they discovered the internet, which has completely transformed the way we work and the way we communicate. And these more innovations are being studied, worked on, and we can also think of those innovations. We are a problem of power. We have got 60% of the world's thorium. If we can get our scientists to complete the work which Dr. Homi Bhabha and H.N. Setna had carried out in crossing the barriers for converting thorium into U-233 and make it a reactor, usable in a reactor. I've got 60% of the world's thorium. Uranium is going out of existence, maybe in another 30, 40 years. And the Americans have already started their research on thorium. But we have got 60% of thorium, and that's all available on the sands of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Now, I was once seeing a news item, so-and-so arrested for sand smuggling. I thought, who crazy fellow will go to a beach and scoop a sand, and which is the crazy person who would buy it? It was being exported to the United States. That's because Kerala and Tamil Nadu sands have the monazite, which has thorium. And America doesn't have thorium. So Americans are building up a stock. That's how the sand smuggling started. And the demand that sand smuggling should not be allowed was made by the Atomic Energy Commission, and it is now being more strictly implemented. So if you can convert thorium into U-233 and make it workable in a reactor, you can generate enormous amount of power, not only for yourself but all your neighbors. That's an innovation waiting to happen, and the government should focus on that. I've been pressing very hard to increase restart the project which Manmohan Singh closed down after the Indo-US nuclear agreement. Then we have fights every day over water. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and I'm a Tamilian whose parents lived in Bangalore, so I have a split mind on this. So they asked me the other day, what are you going to do for our Kaveri problem? I asked them a question, do you want Kaveri water or ordinary water? If you want water, I can give you water unlimited. I can tell you how. Desalination of seawater. It is being used in Israel, it's being used in Saudi Arabia, it's in Dubai. You go to UAE, you see everything green there. How? On sand, there's no river there. It's because of desalination. Same thing in Saudi Arabia, same thing in Israel. We got such a long coastline, 4 desalination plants set up in Tamil Nadu. You will not need water from Kaveri. In fact, you will generate so much water, we can pump it in the reverse direction and give it to Karnataka. And it's not a very big innovation for us because it's already done in Israel and countries like that. We can do it too. And there are plenty of other things. Or you can innovate to make it possible for a canal to be cut through the Deccan, connecting Ganga and Kaveri, and creating a water grid in our country. We have got so many rivers just go into the ocean. Kerala, which is fighting with Tamil Nadu over Mullaperiyar, has got 46 rivers. 96% of it is all going to the ocean. But they say, no, we want Mullaperiyar. So this is a mindset which has to change. That's why I say, you want Kaveri water or you want water? That is the mindset that you should have. We want water. You get it from the skies, you get it from Karnataka, you get it from wherever, but we want water. There is a genuine shortage of water in Tamil Nadu. So these are the problems that have to be addressed. And for that, the university system has become very important. And look at the gift that we have today, not because of government, but because of the people's common sense. We have today the youngest population of the world, that is anyone below 35. And 70% of Indians are below 35 today. The average age of an Indian is 26. What is the average age of the Chinese? 35. Why? Because there is one child per family. Indira Gandhi also tried it in the emergency here, and we sent her home. She was defeated. She was not defeated by the educated people of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. She was defeated by the illiterate people of Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, etc. And they were enraged. by the imposition on them, saying that no, you have to undergo vasectomy and so on. So therefore, after that, nobody dared to force anybody. Our population growth rate is coming down. It's now less than 1.8% per year. It was 2.3, 2.4 only 20 years ago. So as people become economically more prosperous, they will control their population. But you force it like the Chinese, they are today regretting it, that they listened to the world opinion and imposed through their dictatorship a one child per family. So this young crowd in millions, that has to be educated. And that is, in my opinion, the most important enterprise for us. It's not Make in India. It is not getting people to come from America. This crowd, if you educate them with world-class education. What's the difficulty in building universities? There you can, after all, what are we devoting for education? 2% of our GDP. We should devote not less than 6%. This Qatari Commission in 1966 said so. Even today, it's even more important. So if the focus goes to education, and in education, we should motivate our students to think out of the box. Today, all our students are being taught to go for security. I was in IIM. I suppose the same thing is here too. IIM Ahmedabad. After addressing students, I asked them at dinner time, now that you're graduating, what will you do? All of them said, we are looking for some multinational corporation and get a job. I said, what kind of job is that? I mean, every year your salary will increase 5%, and maybe gratuity and provident fund will be added. And at the age of 60, you'll retire and you'll get that money, you'll buy a house and watch television. And you're living longer and longer nowadays. So he said, what should we do? I said, you think like Bill Gates or somebody like that. You know, just take a risk. Pick something, think about something new, and do it. There is a risk, of course. At Harvard, when I used to conclude my lectures, I used to ask the students, there were about students from a large number of countries. Americans used to ask me only one thing, what's the probability I'll end up like Bill Gates? And then we'll tell you whether we will go in for these risky alternatives or we'll go for a regular job. But the Indian students always told me in my class, 100% of the Indian students used to tell me, we prefer a job. Why? I said, this is, well, you get a job, your salary increases every year 5%. This is guaranteed poverty. Why would you want guaranteed poverty? And the Indian students replied, but it is guaranteed. That's the important part. This risk aversion the British has given to us, and we have continued it in this educational system. We must teach our students to take risk. And that risk, of course, has to be a rational risk taking. And that has to be, that itself is a subject. That also has to be part of our. I'm telling you, the only way we can become a real economic power, what Narasimha Rao did, we can't replicate. I told Mr. Narendra Modi also, you can't replicate it. That's exhausted. Only way is by doing new things. If there's a water shortage, find another way. If there's a power shortage, find another way. And the way to do it is by innovations. And in economics, Professor Robert Solow of MIT, who got his PhD from Harvard, also brilliant professors at MIT get PhDs from Harvard. If you get a PhD from MIT, you have to go somewhere else. And of course, by the way, Raghuram Rajan had an MIT from PhD. So I'll give you another equation to tell you how it's important This is now part of economic literature, and it is not known in common sense. If you just put more capital, more labor, you invite all foreigners and ask them to take over as long as they dump money here, that doesn't produce, that what happens. If I have input here, input means capital, K, and labor, and output here, then I will get a curve like this. This is the production curve. Why does it bend like this? Because this is called the law of diminishing returns. So you just go on adding, you will ultimately start hitting a plateau. So what you need to do is to discover another production curve, and move along the curves instead of move from one curve to another instead of on one curve. And this is by innovation. And if you want to see this mathematically, you write production Q is a production function of capital and labor, and it can be augmented by something I'll call as A, which is technological change or innovation. This is also dependent on time. This is dependent on time. This is also dependent on time. And the growth rate of growth of GDP is equal to Q dot by Q. Q dot, by the way, is a physics nomenclature. It means dq by dt, calculus. So this is, if you were to partially differentiate this, if you use your multivariate calculus, you will get growth rate is equal to a factor alpha growth rate of capital U's plus beta growth rate of labor or employment plus what we call as technical change. I'll put this TR, technical TC, technical change. This will be the equation you will get if you use calculus on this. Now, what the econometrics work has shown, and Professor Solo showed, is that this TC divided by the growth rate is 65%. In other words, only 35% in growth is due to, in all the countries, the statistics of all the countries together show only 35% is due to more capital, more labor. So therefore, this craze for foreign direct investment, people getting more money from abroad, then saying in Parliament, oh, see, we got so many, this thing, much more than the previous government. And the previous government says, well, I mean, the previous government had a problem because as the money came in, they also went out in secret bank accounts. So, therefore, this is a very poor way of growing. You want to accelerate your growth rate, you have to have technical change. technological. That means innovation, new ways of doing things. Internet has given you such a high productivity. As you improve the efficiency of capital through innovations, you start going fast. In my opinion, today we are potentially in a position to grow at 12% per year. Even if we grow 10% per year for 10 years, you will be a world power. Today, based on what is called as the purchasing power parity prices, India's GDP is the third largest in the world. If you use the exchange rate need not necessarily reflect the true value of goods. If you use the prices of products, supposing if I'm comparing America and India, the price of a haircut in India, valuation for GDP, should be for India, not the Indian price for a haircut, but the US price, so that the comparability can be there. Use the same price, one price for all countries. This is called purchasing power parity. By that, today, India has already come to a position of the third largest GDP. India has many advantages today. We have a much better financial system than the Chinese. So overtaking Chinese is not a big deal. It can be done. But it can't be done by just bringing more money into the country. It has to come through new innovations, and new innovations which are your present roadblock. Some innovations are very simple. This whole road system. Indians can build lovely roads. They built it in Malaysia, they built it in Nigeria, they built it in Iraq, which enabled the Americans to go from Basra to Baghdad in no time. And George Bush didn't give us credit. He gave credit to Saddam. He said one thing he did, he built very good roads. But we built it on contract. But we are not able to build in Bangalore. Because of corruption. And corruption can only be removed in this country if, first of all, the discretionary powers in allocation of resources is not to a minimum. The market does it. But most of all, immediately what we need to do is take certain measures. One of them is to catch big people and put them in jail. And that's what I'm trying to do. Many of my colleagues say, you won't let, if you go on like this, then Parliament will not run and we won't get bills passed. I said, to hell with bills. You need a new climate. The inefficiency in the use of resources is due to corruption. When you have a tender for the road, you manipulate it so that somebody who gives you a bribe, you give it to him. He puts substandard products. And so one rain and the whole thing goes, and next year another tender comes and another round of corruption. So therefore you can't catch policemen and clerks in corruption. That's, yes, in some stage you have to, but that's not your priority. Corruption is very important. And we have to simplify our system. One of the things I suggested, which will raise resources also, is abolish income tax. How much money are you getting in on income tax? 4 lakh crores. One auction of the 2G spectrum license got you 4 lakh crores. And that was by my petition in the Supreme Court. Coal blocks are yet to be auctioned. You will get 11 lakh crores in one auction. If you catch, or if you bring back all the black money abroad, there's a lot of hesitation on that because some of my colleagues also have accounts abroad. You will get 60 30 times the revenue you get from income tax. Look at the harassment. Today, rich people don't pay income tax. They got chartered accountants who will tell you how to, have expenses here and tax shelters there and so on. Poor people are below the line. So it's the middle class, innovating class which is being harassed. And so, therefore, instead of, harassing them, tell them, please don't, and Indians, by the way, are not spendthrifts. In fact, in this time when this demonetization took place, most of the abuses I got for our government's action was from housewives. I said, why? He said, for years we have been putting 500, 200, and now all of them has got demonetized. This 1,000 rupee note, a 500 rupee note and 1,000 rupee note have got demonetized. So the housewife is the one big saver. And household savings as a ratio of total national savings in India is the highest in the world. 85% of our total savings comes from households. We are supposed to be a poor country. And imagine if you incentivize them by abolishing income tax, you will have it. Give companies liberal tax exemptions if you innovate. Help youngsters to set it up. It's such a hardship today to get capital. People have to go to the informal market. What is the interest rate? 12%. You know what the interest rate is in the banks of America? 2%. That is why I'm against, despite my opposition, the government has gone through with it. What is the use of bringing Walmart to our country? They are only going to package what we are producing. And they'll, of course, package it nicely, and they'll have air-conditioned showrooms and so on. But we have got crores of traders who are working at a margin for enabling this trade, and they get interest rates at not less than 12%, which is the prime lending rate. Sometimes 18%, sometimes 25% if you want it in a quick way. Whereas Walmart will get its capital loans from banks at 2%. It will come to this country and participate in the cheap labor pool, competing with our traders, and therefore our traders will have to pay a higher wage also now because of this competition. So when the Walmart delegation came to see me, they said, we never expected you to oppose us. I said, well, I am for market, level playing field. This is not level playing field. Explain to them why it's not level playing field. They said, what's the solution? I said, solution is allow our Indian companies to take Indian labor to America, build roads, build houses. So they said, that is an immigration problem for us. So I said, you can come with your cheap capital, take advantage of our cheap labor, but I can't take my cheap labor there and take advantage of your cheap capital. What kind of a level playing field is that? We Indians have demonstrated in the most competitive place of the world, namely the United States, what our brain power is. This is not being used here. It's not being encouraged. So when you talk about entrepreneurial, you have to support him in his risk. You can't have entrepreneurship unless you have a risk-taking attitude. And risk-taking attitude means failure. And the society should not discourage him. In our country, everybody just discourages. When I came back from Harvard, first they said, you're an idiot to leave Harvard to come. Then I became professor at IIT. Mrs. Gandhi didn't like me and my thesis that Soviet model is useless. So she told the IIT, sack him. I got sacked. One day, 5:15, I got a letter saying, no, you're no more a professor from 5 o'clock. I was a full professor, of course, a very young age at 28. I told the director, how did you sack me? I am a full professor. He said, well, you see, I got orders from top. So you go and fight in court. I did. Took me 22 years. I won. But I was become a cabinet minister by then. But the order was that this order of termination is null and void. It is as if Swamy continued in service, which means now in IIT, I've done 3 years teaching and 22 years on without teaching. So I'm a 25-year professor of IIT. So I've asked them to give me back my back salary at 12% interest. And the longer they take, the bigger the amount will be. If they give it to me tomorrow, I'll get 2 crores. If they give it to me after another 10 years, I'll get 10 crores, you see. So anyway, when I tell people fight, they say, oh, it was all right for you, you became an MP and you became minister and all that. I did not know that I would become an MP and become a minister. So that is the part of risk-taking. That just because you fail doesn't mean that's the end of the world. And the society has to teach you that risk-taking is rational, risk-taking is the most important part of both entrepreneurship and searching for innovation. You can search for innovation and get nothing. Just because you got research and development money doesn't mean you have to produce something. You can fail. But you got a problem, you identified the problem, we worked for it. So India is on the way. I find the younger generation quite different from the generation when we were in school and colleges. And we have shown ourselves in all over the world. There is a change. I know that the attitude, the cultural attitudes have changed very substantially. We were once upon a time the most developed country in the world. And it is no problem for us to become once more, minus all the encumbrances we had for the last 1,000 years, to become the world's most developed country. The biggest challenge after overtaking China will be the United States, which is specializing in innovations. We will challenge them and defeat them one day, I'm 100% certain. Already there is, sick people are all coming to our hospitals because our doctors give much more care than Western doctors. It's much cheaper. You'll soon find Americans coming to our country also to take our innovations and go. That is not far away. But it requires a mindset change. And the mindset change has to be incorporated in the universities where the mind is formed. Even in schools, you must be told your correct history. If you are told you are beaten all the time and only foreigners came and saved you, then you cannot have a mindset. You'll have a defeatist mindset. And it is not true. This state of Karnataka had produced Vajrayana Empire, which ran for 300 years, defeated anyone who came in their way. And is there in the history book any reference to Vijayanagar Empire? Maybe one paragraph that in South India there was Vijayanagar Empire. But there will be one chapter for each Mughal Raja, you see. That distortion has to change. We have to, therefore, in schools, give them that self-confidence. India is bursting with talent. India is bursting with potentialities. India is bursting with opportunity. What it requires is its labor force being trained as a dynamic, risk-taking community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swamy. Professor Raghuram, could we please invite you to felicitate our chief guest for this event?
Swamy, thank you very much for coming to IIM Bangalore. I really envy, your perspicacity, incisiveness, clarity of thought and way with words at an age, growing younger at 78. Thank you very much. Please join me. Please come.